Are the Maesters working against Viserys Targaryen? A long-running theory in A Song of Ice and Fire is that the Maesters have a grand conspiracy to destroy or control magic, giving them more power and control. One key moment we see in Game of Thrones is when Samwell Tarley goes to the Citadel and is essentially laughed out of the room for even bringing up the idea of White Walkers still being in existence. In the books, the Maesters have also speculated to hate the Targaryens as they dislike magic and dragons. Their hatred for dragons and magic was described in A Feast for Crows, whereas an Archmaester of the Citadel, Marwyn the Mage, stated, "Who do you think killed all the dragons the last time around? Gallant dragonslayers armed with swords," he spat. The world the Citadel is building has no place in it for sorcery or prophecy or glass candles, much less dragon. So even if there is hate from the Maesters towards the Targaryens, how are they moving against Viserys and House of the Dragon? Hand of the King Otto Hightower, his house was integral in the building of the Citadel and still funds the institution. It is the central home for the Order of the Maesters. We've already seen the Hand of the King make King Viserys banish his brother from court in episode 1 of House of the Dragon. Furthermore, the king was also shown to have injured himself while sitting on the Iron Throne, an injury that the Maesters cannot heal or fix. Furthermore, the medieval cesarean performed on the queen was also the Grand Maester's suggestion, an event that didn't end well. Otto also seems to be tightening the grip on the king and making his daughter court the king and ultimately marry him after his wife's death. All of these events further indicate how Otto Hightower and the Archmaesters have weakened Viserys. He lost his wife and brother within a couple of days, an incurable disease, and now they are getting closer to fully control him.
One of the things that I was most excited about House of the Dragon is that, as a firm believer in the Grand Maester Conspiracy, is that I felt like we were getting breadcrumbs to lead us to the conclusion that this theory just might be correct.
You know, a lot of validation in the books. That strongly believe the Grand Maester Conspiracy is a huge plot. It's one of the, if you just go look up the biggest Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire theories, this one is always towards the top, been as long running as R plus L equals J. And I felt like the show, because we didn't spend that much time with Maesters, or at least Maesters that were sort of conspiring, that we didn't get to sort of see that. It was just that one scene of Sam getting laughed out of the room. In the books, it's far more prevalent. And even in the history books, there's a lot of back and forth sort of issues with the Maesters. Much of Fire and Blood and, World of Ice and Fire is told to us through these two perspectives, Mushroom and, an Archmaester. And they have back and forth accounts. And this is the text that they're using to adapt House of the Dragon. So you even see this favoritism towards certain things, right? And certain people in the books that's being used as the text to describe and ultimately create the show House of the Dragon. I think they did a great job here. And, Otto's keeping Viserys, as we see towards the end of the season, sort of at bay with Milk of the Poppy, and it feels like there's Maesters always around him, working on him. The minute that Viserys dies, the Maesters in the room on the small council, like, okay, well, we'll just, we're moving forward with our plans.
Yeah, they were ready to go. And, another person that throws a lot of shade at the gray rats, as she calls them, is Lady Dustin in A Dance with Dragons. It starts, for me, that was the first time it really opened up my eyes to be like, yeah, the Maesters are in a pretty interesting position here. And we see, obviously, the Baratheon in House of the Dragon season 1, who ends up not being able to read, gives it to its Maester. There's a lot of power there. So I've always been very weary of the Maesters since finishing reading the series, and to see that this is kind of being perpetuated in the show was wonderful for me. I really enjoyed it. So I'm actually a believer of this conspiracy theory.
Oh, as am I. I think there's a lot of evidence for it. The glass candles at the Citadel, the whole thing about the Dance of the Dragons is that it's basically also kind of called the dying of the dragons, is that this is really the height of the Targaryen dynasty, and this civil war causes a lot of these dragons to die, and there aren't many left for much longer after this. So after this, man, I feel like the Maesters begin to rise a little bit more in power too. There's also the faith, which plays a part. So there are these sort of other organizations out there doing things. And I think so often we just view it especially because of the show, is like, oh, it's House Lannister or it's House Stark or
Yeah.
Tully or Targaryen or Baratheon, whoever trying to vie for power. But that's not always the case. The Maesters and the Faith are both strong institutions out there also vying for power.
Yes, very, very important institution. And as magic leaves the world and dragons leave the world, it's these institutions that will kind of fill that power vacuum left over from that. So, I just think they could have done a better job treating Viserys. That's all I'm saying. I saw some winks, between the Maesters and Otto, and I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all, Matt.
No, I don't trust them either, but I definitely believe in the idea of the Grand Maester conspiracy, both here in House of the Dragon. If really all this season 1 of House of the Dragon did, which George has said multiple times is better than his books. So you can kind of take that for whatever canon you want. But all it does is sort of add even more weight to that theory.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun.